Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, it's 11:30. It's still in the morning here. It is promptly 11:30 Eastern Time here. We're going to go ahead and get started on our webinar today. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. We're here to talk about the budget in Church Windows accounting. Before we get started on our topic, a few things, technical things. Click the little red arrow on the sidebar of your webinar control panel. That allows you to minimize the webinar control panel, get it out of the way. This is really important if you're using a single monitor setup, or drag it off to the second desktop if you've got a dual monitor setup or more. Just allows you to get the full visual effect of the presentation. We are recording today's webinar event, so the video recording of it will be available on our website here sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours. Pretty soon, pretty quick. We're pretty good about getting those out pretty fast now. There is another similar video that's out there right now that was from a year or two ago that covers the same exact topic, just in a different version of Church Windows. You can revisit that, but frankly, folks, this hasn't changed much over the course of the years. We're here for the next 20 minutes or so, till about 11:50 Eastern Time. I will end wherever I am. Hopefully it may not even take the full 20 minutes, to be perfectly honest. It's not a terribly difficult topic or challenging. The topic is being taken from our A201, Accounting 201 workbook, pages 2 through 6. So if you have the accounting workbooks, go ahead and open to A201, pages 2 through 6. That's the printed material I'm using for the event today. You can purchase the workbooks from our website, of course, if you don't have those. Please keep the questions on topic. If you have a question, type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. I'll do my best to keep an eye on that, and we'll see what we can do to get those answered either during the event or at the very end, but I'll certainly be happy to get those back to those at some point. So let's go ahead and dive in here. So at our main accounting home screen, we can access the budget entry screen in one of two places. So right here, if I introduce my highlighter friend, right here, this little jar icon in the middle, that will open up the budgets window right here. Then we can also go up to here to the upper left and click on budgets. And then in the upper left corner, we've got our little jars icon up there with our budget entry window there. Those are the two different ways that you can access the budget entry screen. Okay, we're going to come back to that momentarily. However, the box that's there at the top of page 2 is really, really important, folks. It talks about, well, income and expenses, of course. Income and expense accounts are the only accounts that we can enter a budget for. Can't enter a budget for assets, liabilities, or funds, just our treasurer's report accounts only. And we'll see that here momentarily when we get into the budget window. But that box with the star on it is really important to understand, only because we hear it and deal with it a lot through our support calls and support system, that it's really important to understand that the budget is just a guess. It's an estimate. It's an educated guess in terms of what we're expecting or anticipating on either bringing in an income for the year or what we're anticipating on expensing for the year, spending, okay? So, once the budget's entered, it's typically not changed unless it's approved by, change is approved by the budget committee, say, or approved by somebody to make that change, treasurer perhaps. But it's just a guess. It's an estimate. It's the way we manage and try to make sure we control our expenses, in our money and how we spend that. Otherwise, the coffers are not endless and they don't go on forever and ever. So you've got to be able to make sure that you're using your money wisely, and for the benefits of the church and your members and visitors. Okay. And for the church ministry. So yes, we want to try to keep within the budget if we can, but we know, as we all know, that is not always the case. An unexpected, item comes up that we have to expense that wasn't into our budget. Furnace breaks down or the AC or something like that. We've got to be able to, get that important piece of equipment replaced or what have you to get that fixed. So again, just keep in mind that a budget is not necessarily real money. It is just a guess or an estimate of what we anticipate of income or expense, okay? So it's just because we hear it a lot that a lot of folks go, oh, well, it's not within my budget. I can't spend that. That's not true, okay? It doesn't mean you don't have the money. It doesn't mean that the expense can't be paid for. It just means that it's not necessarily going to fit within our budget. So to get to the budget window, when we open that, I clicked on the one in the middle. It opens up our budget screen as we see at the bottom of page 2 here, okay? So the budget screen opens there, and then we're going to jump into page 3 here. And so in the upper left corner here, it says total income. Let me get my highlighter here real quick again. So right up here, it says total income. That is a search box. Right above the expand all and collapse all button, okay, that's a search. So if I click in there, or I use the X in the middle right there to clear it out, and I start typing a particular account, so right here I've got, notice handbells income and handbells expenses. So if I type in that account name or number, it's going to help me find that account more quickly, okay? And so what that, at the top of page 3, it talks about is using the find function in order to find an account you want to budget. That's the quickest way to do it. Either search, or you can just scroll down the list until you find the account that you're wanting. They are listed here within their subledgers and subtotals alphabetically, and we will see the account number listed behind the account name here to the right, as you can clearly see in parentheses. Okay, so, but they're listed here alphabetically. Or no, I'm sorry, they're in account number order. They're showing with the account name first. I apologize. So a budgeted account is a budget account that has the check box checked here in the middle column. Right here, let me expand that column out a little bit so you can see it. It just says the word BUDG right there, the letters. But if we notice, we're trying to expand that. Maybe I should just maximize the window. There we go. So right here, we've got this column called budgeted right here in the middle. You see that? This is a series. Each one of these accounts and subtotals can be checked if we want. Well, one or the other. We'll get to that momentarily. But we clearly see that something like loose offering income, when we click on that, has a check mark in the budgeted box, and therefore it now has an option on the right-hand side where we can enter a budget, or where the budget is entered. And I'm talking about over here on the right-hand side. See that? Where we can choose annual, quarterly, or monthly. Okay? So when we click on an account like handbells income, just below that, 3 items down, oh, I did check that. Sorry. Let's do the save the dogs. So here we are on Save the Dogs. Let me get rid of my drawing here. Let's get rid of that. And you'll see no check mark in the budgeted box to the right. So notice when there's no check mark in that budgeted box, I can't enter a budget on the right. Can't choose annual, quarterly, or monthly. It's just we're saying it's non-budgeted account. Okay? So let's say we're wanting to enter a budget for our special holiday giving. So we're going to put a check mark in that box to the right. And now notice we've got a location where we can enter annual, quarterly, or monthly budget to the right. Okay? In this case, it's checked on monthly, but if I want to enter it on annually, I can put it on annual and I can key in the amount. And let's say we're going to make that $4,300. When I click on the word annual again, notice how it will attempt to distribute that across both quarterly and monthly. Okay? Now, let's say special holiday giving may represent a particular time of year for us. Okay? So if we change that back to 0 under annual and click on it again, notice how it clears it out. Or you can click set amounts to 0. Either way, whatever works best for you. But let's say our special holiday giving represents a couple of particular, say, time of year. So we can go down here to monthly, and I can say, okay, I want to enter an amount in April. Say we've got, Easter offering coming in April, and we expect some holiday giving in the month of December income with regards to that for, holiday offering at Christmas, say, for example. Okay? So we put those in there, and notice I've now put those amounts in the 2 specific months that I want that entered for, okay? And it still populates in the quarter and annually at the top, so it still will total those together and put those into their respective quarter and annual amounts, but I have the ability to enter the amounts in those specific months if I wish. Another common example of that would be, I think my insurance, like my property insurance expense has something similar to that. So right here we do property insurance, and sure enough, our semi-annual insurance premiums are paid in April and October each year. Easy for us to enter the budgets in those particular individual months. If you've got things that you want to enter, maybe you do want to enter your, say, for example, general tithes and offerings, in a monthly, in this case, we've got, an amount entered under annual, and we have entered those amounts, notice, under monthly for those different amounts based on previous year's income, trends. So we clearly see higher income in April and higher income in Christmas when we receive a good deal of increased giving in those particular months due to those particular holidays, or holy periods. So again, you have full control here of where and how you want to enter those budget amounts. So on page 4, it talks about even distribution over month. As if we click under something like loose offering, if I change that to annual and I click on the word annual, it is going to distribute it evenly across the quarters and monthly. Okay. Budget for quarter, I can simply put a check mark in the account. And right here under wedding income, if I check that, let's say our wedding income comes in quarters 2 and 3, I can put it here under, this quarter, and then I can do another amount in third quarter. And again, just click on quarterly and it will distribute it across monthly and still total it under annual. Okay. And page 5 talks about the variable distribution by month. It's all a matter of which one of those radio buttons, folks, you have checked down the left-hand side of your budgets. So you see those 3 little radio buttons. You pick that one. You put in your budget amounts. Click on the quarterly, monthly, or annual, and it will auto-distribute it or put it into those other fields for those months or quarters or year. Okay? As I like to say in my calls, don't overthink it. It's a very simple and straightforward process. Page 5, we're not going to go into this with any detail today, but it is important to note that if after you've been using Church Windows accounting for 1 year, the system can help you prepare a budget for you. So it says suggesting the topic budgets in the help system, but to look at and use the budget projection process in Church Windows payroll or in Church Windows accounting. We're not going to cover that today. That's not a topic for today's event. Finally, with just a few minutes left, page 6 talks about what I believe is one of the most frequently underutilized features in the software. Okay? And what I mean by that is budgeting for subtotal. So what I mean by that is right here I've gone and found our gas expense account right here. So we see we've got a number of accounts under our utilities here on the left. Let me get out my highlighter and kind of draw some focus to that. So right here, I've got an arrow called total utilities. That's my subtotal. Then below that, I've got 5 accounts in there that represent my telephone, internet, gas, electric, and water expenses. Okay. I've entered the budget amounts in each one of those accounts independently, hence why we've got the check boxes in each one of those particular expense accounts. Okay. So I've got, Sandra might, no. Definitely don't uncheck that. So here on my telephone, I've got my $1,284 annual or monthly budget amount. Under my internet, I've got my budget amount. You see what I mean? I've got each of those entered separately. If we choose, we can choose to budget a subtotal or grouping a total budget for all of those accounts collectively. Okay? So we can do it in a couple different ways. Because they're already budgeted in those accounts, I've entered those, I can simply go right up here to the one that's the little checkbox next to total utilities, and I can check that one, and it'll say this will remove the budgets from all the subsidiary accounts and or subtotals, and would I like to continue on that? So if I say okay, what that does is it removes the budget from each one of those individual accounts and simply allows me to put a total in my in my subtotal called total utilities. So I'm a big question asker. So how does this help us? You can ask yourself, okay? Well, a simple example of it is, let's say I've had a particularly hot summer or a particularly cold winter. Well, if I've got an excess in my gas budget for 1 year or an electric budget, it doesn't matter how much I spend on any individual account, say, for example, that what's more important is how much have I spent on all 5 of my utilities expenses for the year. So as long as all of them collectively have not spent more than $26,699, then it's not considered over budget. So it's about the collective grouping of accounts as opposed to the individual accounts. So again, a particularly cool summer can offset a particularly cold winter. Again, for a very simplistic example of that, okay? Doesn't really matter how much I spend under gas or electric individual. What matters is all of my expenses separate, together, collectively, okay? Again, I think it's a commonly underutilized feature in the software. The accounts, individual accounts don't matter. The collective grouping of the accounts and their expenses do in comparison to the budget. So, finally, I should have said this earlier, folks. I neglected to say this earlier, and I apologize, is we cannot enter budgets with cents on it. You can only enter budgets for whole dollar amounts. So it was in the design concepts for that, our developers determined that in the overall scheme of things, a rounding up or down, so, something over 50 cents on one budget would be offset by a budget amount that was under 50 cents somewhere else, okay? So, but it's important to understand that we can only enter budget amounts for whole dollar amounts. We cannot enter cents or pennies on that, okay? So that is our topic for the day.